little goat. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. Chabad doesn't say it. The Sfardim do not say it, but it does not take anything away from its holiness. The Chidor, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, who lived about 2 generations before the Baal Shem Tov, 2 or 3 generations before the Baal Shem Tov, says very special things about a lot of secrets of Torah are hinted in the Chad Gadya. In fact, my brother in his book over here on Pesach has at the end of the book how he explains on his own how the whole Chad Gadya leads up to Mashiach. And it's a strange story with a little goat. The cat eats the goat, the dog bites the cat, the stick hits the dog, and the fire burns the stick and the water extinguishes the fire. And the cow drinks the water, and the shochet slaughters the cow. The Malach HaMaves takes the shochet's life away, and God slaughters the Malach HaMaves. What's the strange thing about this hymn at first glance? Who's the good, who's the bad one? Who's the good guy? Well, the Chad Gadya is cute, little innocent sheep. How there comes the cat and bites the sheep and eats the sheep. The cat is the bad one. The dog bites the cat, dog is a good one. So the dog is good, every other one is good. Dog is good, the stick is bad, the fire is good, the water is bad, the ox is good, the shofet is bad, the Malach HaMaves is good, and God, Malach HaMaves is good. So if you go by that order, something strange over here doesn't fit. The Malach HaMaves turns out to be the good guy, and the one above him, where do we go wrong? The answer is the dog is not the good guy. Who tells you dogs get involved? No one asked you to get involved in this dispute between the cat and the... So you're not... What does that have to do with Pesach? Pari says, I shouldn't be punished. God decreed the Jews should have to be slaves. I'm just doing God's work. Who told you to get involved? No one told you to get involved. God's decree, it's God's business. So you're the dog. Pari is the dog. You're the bad guy. Now, once the dog is the bad guy, everything else fits. But that's not the depth. My brother has a beautiful 20 pages, the end of his book over here, which I'd like to share with you next week, not this week, how he learns the whole cat, what the cat represents, what the dog represents. Very interesting. The dog biting the cat is not as bad as it sounds, and the stick and the fire and the water till we get to the final stage of Mashiach, which is when Hashem slaughters the Malach HaMaves. We'll leave that for next week. Pesach is called Zman Cheresenu, just mentioned before, is Zman Cheresenu. There's another name in Hebrew for freedom. Anyone know what that name is? Even modern Hebrew more. Vacation. How do you call vacation in Hebrew? Chofesh. What's the difference between Chofesh and Cherus? Chofesh and Cherus. I can't do it. Chofesh and Cherus. They both mean freedom, seemingly, but they are very different. The difference is like this. What is the actual etymology of the word chofesh? It comes from the word chipus, ches pesach, sin, which means searching, looking. You don't have it. You're looking for something, and you're looking like blindfolded. You're looking and searching, and you can't figure out what you're all about. What is cherus? Cherus has the same exact spelling as chorus. The words that were engraved, carved into the luchos, the tablets. It says charut al haluchot. The words of the 10 Commandments were charut, were engraved, carved into the luchos, becoming one, etched in, becoming one. The letters and the stone became like one. The letters were part of the stone, not like writing on parchment. Sefer Torah is very holy, but the luchos had the writing as part of the stone itself. When you know what you're all about, when you know, in other words, when your purpose of why you were created is part of you, you're not looking, finding some meaning in life. You have it already. You know that you're here to serve a purpose. You're here on a mission to serve Hashem. That's what real true freedom is. When you know what you're all about, you understand what your mission in life is. That's true freedom. When you're confused, like some people, many people just don't know what to do with their lives. And they're looking here, looking there, they party here and party there. Are they really happy people? No. They seem happy on the outside. I'll tell you a little story before I start the Sikha. I heard this from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. He says he met a college student from a very affluent family. And the guy was was a prodigy, he was a genius. and succeeded in every study, valedictorian. And he had everything he wanted in life. So Rabbi Jacob asked, and then he decided he wants to become Balchula. He wants to turn to Yiddishkeit. He asked him, may I ask you a simple question? Why? You have it so easy. Your life is so, so just spoon-fed. Everything is perfectly set for you. I'll tell you why, he says. Once I was 4 years old, as a 4-year-old child, something happened to me. What happened as a 4-year-old? My mother bought me for my birthday a fish tank. And I'm watching this fish standing in one place for 6 hours doing nothing. So bored. What kind of life is that? I felt so bad. I empathized with that fish. I couldn't tolerate the boredom. I decided, let me take the fish out and enjoy life. I took the fish out and it started jumping. It was jumping for joy. And I went to my mother, Mommy, I made the fish happy. What do you mean? Look, I took the fish out of the fish tank. What? She runs, and then Yiskadash Shmei Rabban. Goodbye, fish. It died. So he said, I felt like there's so many people, all my friends are having parties and they're going here, they're going there. They seem like they're happy, but they don't know what they want. It's like a chicken without a head. They're moving around, bouncing, and they're dying, they're jumping. Are they happy? No, they're mixed up. They're confused. That's what it looks like to me. Sometimes you see someone sitting tranquil. You can sit there for hours and hours and hours, especially on a Shabbos. You can't do anything. You're restricted. But there's a feeling of serenity, peace. You know who you are. You know what you want. You know what you're all about. It's charus. Your life purpose is one with you. You're not looking for anything. And that's true freedom, not the freedom that people think is freedom. Free for all, do what you want, hefker. Okay, this sikha we're going to be learning is a sikha in English, translated in English, that is. I'm going to pass it down. And it's liberation, redemption, emancipation on 3 levels, or liberation on 4 levels. Significance of 3 and 4. Now on Pesach, we see a lot of 4s. 4 cups, the 4 expressions of freedom, 4 questions, the 4 sons. A lot of 4s, but we have 4 matzahs. And the question is going to be why. So there's 3 and there's 4. Yes, it has something to do with the fact we have 3 avos and 4 imois, 3 forefathers and 4 matriarchs. Yes, that's connected. It's also connected to the fact that matzah is biblical. Drinking of 4 cups of wine is rabbinical. We'll soon see why that's related to 3 and 4. Yes, it's also related to the 4 elements. The 4 elements of Eish, Ruach, Mayim. And how Afar, earth, is so different from the other 3. It's connected to a lot of different things, but these are just an example of the different 3s and 4s that we'll learn about. So this is a sikha. The sikha begins with, when numbers are more than digits, what do the 4 cups of wine recall? I didn't make a copy of the entire sikha. The last part is the most difficult part, so I left that out, but this is the majority of the sikha. So what do the 4 cups of wine recall? So you probably know the 4 phrases of a hitzesi, the hitzalti, the galti, the lakata. I just want to mention one more thing about freedom. I forgot to mention this. I'll throw that in right now. Pesach is a yontif of kashas, of asking questions. Ask. Please feel free to ask. It's not a sin to ask questions. Don't start believing there are no answers. Don't start saying, well, if you can't answer my question, I guess you have no answer, and therefore, my question stands. No, there's an answer. But feel free to ask. Why? Because once slaves don't feel free to ask questions, we were emancipated from this ability, from this inability to express ourselves, to express our wantings, our desires. You're allowed to express, I want to know. Tell me, what's the answer? Why this? Why that? You're allowed to have these questions. It's okay. So Pesach is the zman of freedom. Freedom, people that are free can ask questions. That's why we ask ourselves, if you don't have any children in the home, and you don't have anyone besides yourself, when you make the Seder, you still ask the question. You ask yourself the question. There's a part of you that asks and a part of you that answers. You were busy with Mrs. Okay. Okay. Well, you missed, what you missed.
Hi.
Oh, you're right. Anyone else need? Chani here?
Yes, here, yes. He's coming in a second.
Okay, I'm out of it. Oh, once there is one more. Okay, it's all about, the Sikh is about liberation divided by three. Liberation in three stages, three phases, three layers. Liberation or emancipation or redemption in four. When numbers are more than digits. If anyone wants to say you're free, no one wants to say, I'll have to say. Okay, I got the message. Who says? Oh, okay. What's it, Isabella? You changed your name? Shoshana is a very, very nice name. Means a rose. Okay, go ahead.
What 4 cups of wine are called? Our sages state that the 4 cups of wine which we are ordained to drink on Pesach night correspond to the 4 promises of redemption stated at the beginning of this week's Torah reading. I will bring you out, I will deliver you, I will redeem you, and I will take you.
I just want to, before you get next paragraph, I know I talked too much, but I want to just mention something here. The four phrases, I will bring you out, I will deliver you, which means Pitzalti, I'll redeem you, Alti, and I will take you, Balakati. These three of the 4 represent 3 stages in going out of Egypt. Besides going out of Egypt, before going out of Egypt, before going out of Mitzrayim, we went out of torturous slavery. But even after we were no longer tortured, we were still slaves. And then we are no longer slaves, but we're still in Egypt. So we have 3 stages. You're not tortured, you're not even a slave, you're not even in Egypt. Oh, how do you feel?
Much better.
Ran out of copies. I didn't expect to have a crowd. You have one, but someone else doesn't have. So
There's 2.
there's 2?
Oh, yeah, I have 2.
Okay, good.
No.
Oh, it's all one.
Oh, I have this one. Is that the same one?
You could share it. Okay. So these are already 3 stages in going out of Mitzrayim. The 4th stage is the positive, becoming Hashem's nation. Not leaving somewhere, but getting somewhere, meaning becoming, this is by Matan Torah. When Hashem gave us the Torah, I took you as a nation. So 3 stages in leaving the prison, Mitzrayim, the most depraved society on earth, and then Hashem acquiring us as a people, acquiring, interesting. Lakachti, I acquired you. I took you means I acquired you. By the Chad Gadya, we also say Chad Gadya. Chad Gadya, we are compared to a little goat. We say it twice. My brother has a whole explanation why we say it Chad Gadya twice. Chad means one. We are called one nation for 2 reasons. Number one, we are one nation, unusual, different than any other nation in the world. The fact we have survived, we're still here, and we're so small. Number 2, we are the nation that brings the oneness of God on earth. So not that we're one, Hashem is one, and we introduce the oneness of Hashem, the one God in this world. Goy echad ba'aretz has 2 meanings. We're one nation in the earth, or Goy, a nation, echad, Hashem echad ba'aretz. We bring Hashem down to earth. We make Hashem popular in the world. Okay, so that's why it's Chad Gadya twice. But anyways, it's a side point. I'd like to next week, I mentioned before you walked in, I'd like to next week spend some time on explaining the Chad Gadya and the 3 names of the holiday, Pesach, Chag Pesach, Chag Matzos, and Zman Cheraseinu. Why are the 3 different names? What do they represent? Okay, but here we're talking about the 4 phrases of Geula, which is why we drink 4 cups of wine. Continue.
Mordecai question.
Who's Mordecai? Not Mordecai in the Megillah. This Mordecai, his name was Mordecai, the son of Hillel. He was a martyr. He lost his life. He was murdered by one of the pogroms. He was he lived in France or Germany, or both, like Rashi. I think he was born in the year 1300. To make a calculation of how long ago that is. Year 1300. So he's about 100 years, a little over 100 years past the Rambam.
So it's in the Rishonim still?
Yes. Rishonim last all the way, very good. Rishonim last about another 200 years after that. Rishonim ended, about 600 years ago. That's when the era of the Rishonim ended. Then comes the Acharonim. Then you have the Achronei Achronim, the last of the last, which is, these generations. However, the Rabbi Greenberg said about the Alter Rebbe, someone said about the Alter Rebbe, that had he been in the times of the Rishonim, he would have been one of the greatest Rishonim. Had he been in the times of the Geonim, who preceded the Rishonim, he would have been one of them. Had he been in the time of the Gemara, he would have been one of the greatest of the Amoraim. Had he been in time of the Tanoim, the Mishnah, he would have been. Had he been in the times of the Nevi'im, he would have been one of them. So this is what the Tzemach Tzedek said about the Alter Rebbe. The Rabbi Greenberg, who was known to criticize almost everyone, unless you're from the Rishonim, he criticized you. You didn't get any, very few. But he called the Alter Rebbe Hagoin Ho Amiti. If you get a praise from the Rabbi Greenberg, you're special. He didn't praise so many people. He was known to criticize anybody who thought he knew how to learn. He'd criticize you. If you were humble, he loved the Bachrim. He loved the Lubavitcher Bachrim because they were not big shots. These people he loved, but he couldn't stand rabbis who thought they knew how to learn. He proved to them that you don't know what you're talking about. You're an Amaharetz. You're ignorant.
He was not Lubavitch?
Not officially. He gave the Rebbe smicha, and he referred to the Rebbe was 11 years old. The Rebbe wrote him a letter, question, and he writes back, "From your question, it's hard to believe you're only 11 years old." You got to praise. The Rebbe, as an 11-year-old, asked him a question that you have to go through most of the Shas Talmud to know to ask a question like that. The Rabbi Greenberg was impressed. It's hard to impress him. It was very difficult to impress. He's an amazing, brilliant genius. Not just that he had the entire Babylonian and the Jerusalem Talmud word for word, like your five fingers, but he understood anything you could derive from those words that are in between the lines. He also had that like one split second. Modern technology, he could bring it in a second, show you a Gemara and prove from a Gemara what the answer would be with a modern technology, not a technological issue. So he was like a beyond. He didn't belong to this generation. The Rabbi Greenberg belonged. Had he been in the time of Rashi and the Rambam, he would have had a perfect time. He felt like he was no one to talk to. He had nobody to talk to. That's what he felt like. In his generation, he was way above and beyond the whole generation, even the great ones. Okay, enough of that. Now, so that Mordechai is Mordechai bar Hillel, who asks the following question. Continue. I'm sorry about this whole interruption.
Extending that logic, 4 matzahs to be required, since eating matzah on Pesach night is a scriptural commandment, recalling that our ancestors were redeemed from Egypt. It would seemingly have been more appropriate for taking 4 matzahs at the Seder in correspondence with the 4 promises of redemption.
Right. Matzah is from the Torah, and the 4 phrases are also in the Torah. And matzah we ate when we came out of Egypt. So matzah certainly should have been related to the 4 expressions of freedom. Why only wine 4? Why is the matzah taken in 3? Okay, Mordechai continues.
For this reason, there are commentaries that explain that the 4 cups correspond to the 4 cups of salvation. In other words, because of the difficulty Mordechai mentioned, these commentaries interpret the 4 cups of the Seder as corresponding to the 4 cups of salvation. In Tehillim,
you have it says Kos Yeshuos. We say in Havdalah, the cup of salvation 4 times. Cup of salvation. That's why we have 4 cups. Matzahs are not cups. So that's because if you say it's because of the 4 phrases of Geula, that should relate to matzahs too. But once you say the 4 cups we drink is because of the 4 times the word cup connected to salvation are mentioned in Tehillim, now we have an answer why the wine is 4 and the matzah is not. It's also interesting. You know about the story with Yosef on the Saramashkim? He says he dreamt that his cup, the cup of the butler is mentioned 4 times also, and that led to Yosef's freedom from prison. So just like those cups mentioned by Paro with the butler, that Paro will restore him back, the cup will be used again. The word cup is mentioned 4 times there too. So some say that the reason why we drink 4 cups of wine is connected with those 4 cups that the butler, that's mentioned by the butler. And since through those cups, Yosef interpreted his dream, and became the viceroy and left prison. Likewise, and also, thanks to Yosef, we were able to get out of Mitzrayim. Yosef, although brought us in Mitzrayim, but he also gave the Jews the power to overcome the Golas and come out of Mitzrayim. So because of that, it's another answer. So then that would explain why the wine, which is a cup, is 4. 4 cups of salvation, or 4 times the word cup is mentioned by the butler in the story with Yosef. Okay, but not the four phrases of Geula. So there are opinions that say the 4 cups of wine are not connected to the 4 phrases of Geula. Okay, that's the end of this paragraph. Nevertheless, Rebbe continues.
Nevertheless, the great must be resolved according to all authorities, and particularly according to the above-mentioned reasoning that is cited by the Alter Rebbe as halacha in his Shulchan Aruch, that the 4 cups correspond to the 4 promises of redemption.
Right. What about the commentaries who do say that the 4 cups of wine does correspond to the 4 phrases of Geula? Then we're back to the same question now. So how come matzah is not 4? Okay, that's the question. Why 3 matzahs? Anyone know why we have 3 matzahs? I thought you would say that, or Kohen Levi Yisrael. Yeah, but that's only after you have 3 that we throw that in. But
said it because matzah represents freedom, and there's only 3 of the 4 words that actually represent the freedom. That's right.
Because 3 of the 4. So why is wine not 3 then? Why would the wine be all 4 phrases and matzah only first 3? Really? Wine certainly does. We lean, maybe you don't, but I lean when we drink the wine. We have to lean. Wine is a drink of joy. In fact, they couldn't have libations in the Beis Hamikdash unless there would be singing going on. Singing, the libations were always associated with singing. Singing and drinking wine brings simcha. Ein simcha ela bayayin, Gemara says. There's no joy except for wine and meat. Real joy, down to earth, physical joy. So wine is more of a royal drink than matzah is. Matzah is a poor man's food. Yes, we ate the matzah coming out of Egypt, but matzah has no ingredients. It's poor. It's called lechem oni, a poor man's bread. So you started saying something. You're right track. Took the wrong train. You're on the right track. It's okay. If you would get the right train, I'd be shocked. Without the sikha, learning inside. So why is matzah 3? So there are what are the reasons we know about without the sikha? Without any hinting I gave today, why do we have 3 matzahs? Yes?
I'm not sure why we have 3 matzahs. I was just gonna say that if matzah is the poor man's bread, why does it cost more than non-shmur?
Why what?
Why is it so expensive?
It's hard to get matzah that's so tasteless. No, it's for the mitzvah. Why is an esrog worth $100 or $200? When I asked my the maid that works in my house, what do you think this is worth? It's expensive. Oh wow, maybe $10. He was going to say 2, but no, it must be 10. They have no understanding of the value of a mitzvah. And after Sukkot, it's worth nothing. We use an esrog day, citron. Okay, so yeah.
Said, but we talked about first 3 were about leaving prison.
That's what the
Okay.
yeah, pretty much what you're from Boca Raton. I got you right. Okay, what's your name
Shani.
again?
Shani.
Shanine. Okay. Simple reason without knowing the sikha is I know why we have 3. One reason is because we have to have lechem mishnah, which is 2. Like if you have every yontif, you have 2. But you have to have a broken matzah. If you break one of the 2, you don't have 2. You have to have 2 complete matzahs. Well, you also have to break a matzah, so you have to have a 3rd one to break besides the 2. That's why we have 3. But why not 4? Why only 3? Another reason is given. The Rebbe also mentioned that when you have a thank you offering to give to Hashem for 4 different reasons: a person who is sick and recovered, a person who came out of prison, going overseas, and you bench gomel. Let's say we do it for benching gomel. We don't have a carbon today, but we bench gomel. And there's a 4th one if you were stuck in a wilderness and got out of it. These are the 4 people that have a requirement to thank Hashem. They would offer a sacrifice in the times of the Beis Hamikdash. Today we come to the Sefer Torah and we actually bench gomel. How women do it, I'm not sure. That you have to ask someone else. But this is how it's done. Now we came out of prison. Now what would be the actual korban? Person who came out of prison would bring a korban. It's called a korban toda. What would it consist of? It would consist of 30 matzos of different types. 3 different types of matzah. One type of matzah would be a matzah made from mix a matzah with a lot of oil, not the matzah we have on Pesach, there's no oil in that matzah, but matzah mixed with oil is not chametz. A second group of 10, which would be matzah with not mixed oil, but the oil would be smeared on the matzah. It's like a wafer, wafers with smeared oil. And the third one would be regular matzah baked and then cooked, and then also mixed with oil after the baking. 3 types of matzah, 10 of each, total of 30 matzahs. However, if you only had 3, and you couldn't have all 30, just have 3, 1 of each kind, you're also yotzei. So being that 3 would be the minimal amount of Toda offerings, of matzah offerings, therefore we have 3 matzahs to represent our thank you for getting us out of Egypt, which was like one big prison. So since the carbon Toda, which you bring when you come out of prison, is made up of 30, but the minimum is 3, we have 3 matzahs representing that. Okay, that's what it says. But the question still is, fine, but why don't we also represent the 4th one? So we're going to discuss that in the Sikha here. Okay, I'm going to say the next part. The halacha is that 3 matzahs are required for the Seder. The rationale is that 2 whole matzahs are required over which to begin the meal, as on the other festivals, and 1 additional broken matzah recalling the bread of affliction. Affliction, we break it. That represents affliction. Alternatively, another reason is given by the Mordechai that the 3 matzahs recall the 3 types of unleavened bread that accompany the Thanksgiving offering. Okay, 3 types. I gave a different answer, but you could actually bring just 3 matzahs instead of 30. But he says that since there were 3 types of unleavened bread that accompany the Thanksgiving offering, thus we have the 3 matzahs representing those 3 types. To add a further point, every Torah concept is precise in all its aspects. Thus, it is logical to say that the number of matzahs 3 does not merely result from an external factor, because the carbon Toda had 3, therefore. No. Rather, just as the number of cups of wine, 4, is integrally associated with the cups, allusion to the 4 promises of redemption, so too the number of matzos is integrally associated with the rationale for eating matzahs in general, to recall that our ancestors were redeemed from Egypt. In other words, the Rebbe is saying like this. What did we say before? Well, we have to have lechem mishnah, then we have to throw in a 3rd matzah because we have to break 1. But why is it that Hashem made it that there would be 3? Everything is by divine providence. The fact that it turns out to be 3 is not only because, well, you have to have 2 anyways, and you have to break 1, so it turns out to be 3. No, it's much deeper than that. There must be an association with the number 3 to matzah. And it also has to do with the letters in the aleph base. What's the 3rd letter in the aleph base? Gimel. Gimel actually has a meaning. It means to bestow. Gomel. Gemilas chesed. Gomel. Give. To give. Dalet has a meaning. What does Dalet mean? Dal means a poor man who's on the receiving end. In fact, the Gemara says, Gimel Dalet, Gemol Dalim. Give to the poor. Gimel is the giver, Dalet is the receiver. How does that fit with the matzah and the wine? We'll soon see. And it answers the question. So you were saying, Shanine, you were saying something right, very right, but didn't complete it. You didn't complete the thought. Whatever will help you out here. Well, the Hosef, to add a further point, every Torah concept, I said this right, my mistake. Based on the above, the next paragraph, based on the above, it follows that there are 2 motives, 2 ideas involved in the redemption from Egypt. One motive associated with 3 elements. This aspect of redemption is expressed by eating matzah, which requires taking 3 matzahs. And the second motive is associated with 4 elements corresponding to the 4 promises of redemption, to all 4, which is why our sages ordained us to drink 4 cups of wine. And here's what we're going to explain it. Next page, page 90. 2 stages in leaving Egypt. There are 2 general stages. One is composed of 3, and then there's a final 4th one. It is possible to offer the following explanation as to why the number 3 is associated with the matzahs and the number 4 with the cups of wine. As well known and explained in Torah literature, the Jews were not worthy of redemption at the time of Exodus. We were really bad off. Their spiritual state had declined so drastically that had they remained in Egypt for another moment, they would have been entirely submerged in the impurity of Egypt in the 50 gates of impurity, a state from which redemption would have been impossible. I'm going to soon ask the question, how could anything be impossible for Hashem? It was only that in a blink of an eye, Before they reached that stage, God took the Jews out of, right when they were in 49, the 49th gate, but they haven't reached the 50th, God took the Jews out of the impurity of Egypt. So I'm going to stop saying God and say Hashem. And the King of Kings is Melech Malchi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, instead of the Kings of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, revealed Himself to them and schlepped us out and redeemed them. Ready or not, here I come. It can be explained that this is the meaning of the concept that the Geula of Mitzrayim, or the Exodus from Egypt, was consummated only at the giving of the Torah. Only then did their impurity depart in a complete sense. So there are two general stages: leaving the evil, leaving Mitzrayim. That itself is divided into three stages. And then there is, okay, enough of leaving. Where are you going to? Like the Rebbe would always say, let my people go. Go where? Go crazy? Where are they going? Go and serve me. That they leave out. Let my people go. Freedom, go. Go to become Hashem's servant instead of being Paro's servant. That's, without being Hashem's servant, without serving Hashem, you're not free. You're in limbo. You're nishta hin, nishta her. You're not here, you're not there. You're like a chicken without a head, walking. I mentioned the story before. You were here when I mentioned the story? Rabbi Jacobson's story? No, not with the college student. You walked in late? I don't want to walk in.
What?
The college student who became from.
Well, that sounds like a lot of stories.
No, you weren't here when I said the story. Okay. Anyways, I won't mention it again, because most of you were here. A lot of people just don't know what to do with their lives, and they go partying, and they get drunk, and they go do things that are crazy, and they do irresponsible things, and the next morning they feel, well, And again, they don't know what they're looking, searching, and then sometimes they search for the wrong things, and they go to who knows where for other religions, and they're going around in circles. They don't know what they're all about. I mentioned before, there's chofesh. That's the non-Jewish version of freedom. Free to do whatever you want. And then there's the cherus, which is cherus like chorus, which means when Judaism is carved in you, when you know who you are, when you realize what your purpose in life is, and you're not running around like someone who's lost. You might look like you're being bored. Isn't that boring just to sit? You mean you don't go out, you don't party? I mean, is that boring? Don't you get tired of it? Isn't Shabbos boring? How do you have to come on? You don't really keep every Shabbos. I'm sure you really cheat, don't you? When it comes to married couples, they can't believe you actually you really stay apart for almost 2 weeks. I mean, you don't have relations for 2. Come on, yeah, I'm sure you do. They can't even imagine this idea of having an authority over you that you really observe. That's true freedom, is when you know what you are. When a person says you buy yourself a blouse and it says, make sure you know how you don't put it in the don't use bleach, or don't use this, don't use that. Oh. And the person who buys his blouse or shirt, who are you to tell me what to do? It's mine. I bought it. I'll decide what I want to do with it. Yeah, but the one who manufactures shirt knows best. Hashem manufactured us. He knows what is good for us and what's not good for us. So that's true freedom. Anyways, now, the Rebbe explains like this. It is possible to offer the following explanation, unless anyone wants to say. Anyone want to say? No? It is possible to offer the following explanation. Said that already. Okay. This concept, next paragraph, Yesh Lomar, this concept is also reflected in the 4 promises of redemption. The fourth and last of those promises, I will take you to myself as a people, is referred to and was fulfilled through the giving of the Torah. The first 3 are just going out of Mitzrayim. The purpose and consummation of the exodus from Egypt, or Yetzias Mitzrayim, was for the Jews to depart entirely from the impurity of Mitzrayim. This was accomplished during the days of Sphira between the Geula and Matan Torah, the exodus of Egypt and the giving of the Torah of Matan Torah, when they prepared a full 49 days to work on their 7 emotional attributes times 7, 49 days of preparation, refining themselves until they were befitting of the title a holy nation. On this basis, a distinction can be made between the matzahs and the 4 cups of wine. What does matzah represent? When the Jews didn't know what hit them. We left Mitzrayim, but we weren't tasteful. We had no taste. What does it mean to be a Jew? What does it mean to be godly? Before I get to this, I want to just answer the question you asked before. How could we say the Jews would have waited another little longer and they would have fallen to the 50th gate? It would be impossible to redeem them. Since when is there anything impossible for Hashem? What's too late? What, he has to rush? So the answer is, of course, Hashem could do anything. But then it would be so out of the question. It would be something that's completely out of our realm. In other words, like this: if you reach the 49 gates of Tumah, that means that you're very submerged into a lot of terrible things, including idolatry. But you at least realize and know that you have a problem. The 50th gate of Tumah is you have no desire, everything is perfect, and you have no desire whatsoever to get out. So if Hashem is going to force your hands and make you want, he doesn't want that. He wants you to want. So as long as they haven't reached the 50th gate, they're submerged and they can't control themselves. They're into the Egyptian culture. They're heavily involved in idolatry, but at least they know they're Jewish. In fact, they didn't change their garments. They kept their Jewish way of dressing. They also didn't change their name. So they kept their identity. They wanted to be Jewish. They just couldn't help themselves. That's 49 gates. And you get so addicted to klipa that you can't control yourself. But you know you're addicted. You know you're a drug addict. You know you have a problem. 50th gate means, I have no problem. I'm fine. I don't want you, God. And there were Jews who were at the 50th gate, by the way. Those that didn't come out. Those that refused to leave Mitzrayim. And they were fighting off. We don't want them. We want to stay. They were on Paro's side. Many of them became kapos. That's the 50th gate, when you have no desire for anything. Well, if all the Jews would have, God forbid, become like that, no desire to leave, then Hashem can't force us. He can't force you. He can awaken you. If you have it in you, you have a wanting, he can awaken and revive you. And even though you're not ready yet, you don't have it in you, you don't have a taste, but he can, okay. But one thing is for sure, when they came out of Mitzrayim, we were like little children in our Yiddishkeit. We were so many years lost in this golus. The Jews were there, we didn't know what hit us. We didn't know what hit us. So with Hashem doing, he was pulling us out. When you get pulled, what are you doing? Just letting yourself get pulled. You're running, but you're being pulled out, forced out. So that's Hashem doing things for us. We are on the poor end of things. We have no taste and no appreciation of what it is. We just know it's the right thing to do, but it's dry. It's like the matzah that has no ingredients except for water and flour. So the matzah, and that's why you also break the matzah, indicating that it's a poor man's bread. So matzah is emphasizing the dimension of the redemption from Egypt that came about not so much as a result of the divine service of the Jewish people. We weren't serving Hashem. We were just in the dumps, but rather as a divine initiative. Hashem is the one who initiated. This is implied by the wording of the Haggadah. This matzah that we eat, what is the reason? Why do we eat matzah? What does the Haggadah say? Because the dough of our ancestors did not have time to rise before the King of Kings, meaning Hashem, the Holy One, revealed himself to them and redeemed them. Matzah is thus connected with God's haste to bring about the redemption. It's Hashem hurrying up because we don't have time to stay longer. He hurried to take the Jews out of the impurity of Egypt to the extent that the dough of our ancestors did not have time to rise. It was a miracle. In other words, just as Hashem was revealing himself to the Jewish people, it was so powerful, it forced us out, but it also did not even allow the dough to become chametz. It was a miracle because it was much more than 18 minutes that it waited for us to, and yet throughout the entire journey, the dough did not rise, indicating that the world was like transfixed with Hashem's presence, like hypnotized, and it couldn't rise. The world couldn't rise and show itself. The arrogance was like suppressed, but it's there. It's like a forced suppression. And that's what matzah represents. We are poor. We don't feel anything. And therefore, it is necessary that matzah be poor man's bread. Our sages state the classification of one as poor is dependent solely not on poor, meaning financially poor, but poor in knowledge, solely on the person's dearth of knowledge. Thus, poor man's bread alludes to a state of poverty regarding holiness and purity. To put it simply, a poor man's bread has no flavor, in contrast to leavened bread or rich matzah that has flavor. Flavor alludes to a matter that brings a person pleasure, be it the intellectual pleasure of understanding. On the next page, 92, comprehending either an intellectual pleasure to comprehend a concept or positive and energizing emotions. Either way, you're excited emotionally or you're excited intellectually. One of the two, either one of the two is considered taste. And the matzah has no taste. Why? Because since the redemption from the impurity of Mitzrayim came from above without spiritual preparation on the part of the Jews, it lacked flavor for them. There was no flavor. And therefore, we should now understand why the matzah is three. Of the four phrases of Geula, three of the four represent us doing nothing. Hashem took us out, delivered us, took us out from torture, from slavery, from Mitzrayim. What did we do? Just let ourselves be taken. The fourth one is different. The fourth one came after an avodah, after Pesach. What do? We count sphira. We work on ourselves. So that's Hashem responding to our avodah. It's a different story. Then we don't feel empty and poor. Then we're rich. We're working on ourselves, and we are able to taste the taste of getting closer and closer to Matan Torah every day. So three of the four are poor. Therefore, the matzah, which is a poor man's bread, corresponds to the three of the four phrases. Of the four phrases, three of the four is the matzah type of Geula. The Geula of where the poor man, the one who is redeemed, doesn't feel what's going on. In other words, what's the godly energy that's redeeming us? What is that? What is godliness? We know we're being redeemed, but what is it? What exactly does redemption mean? We have no idea. All we know is, well, we're no longer slaves of Pare. But what are you? We don't know. We're just out. Who are you? What's Hashem all about? What does it mean to be Jewish? And to be chosen, which is what took place with Matan Torah. That's the fourth. We don't have matzah. It can't connect to the fourth level. The fourth level is when you're rich. Matzah is a poor man's bread. Of the four phrases, three are related to poverty. The fourth one is related to richness, wealth, spiritual wealth. Okay. We were slaves in Mitzrayim, and a slave prefers a lack of restraints. In the spiritual sense, in other words, a slave doesn't want to have anyone over him. In the spiritual sense, this means that in Egypt, the Jews were unable to appreciate the deeper pleasures that come from godliness. You know, a good part of us, our Nefesh Bahamas, wants to just be free from telling us what to do. We don't want to have rules and regulations. We don't want to have the Torah telling us what to do. That was their Nefesh Bahamas. It was like strange to them to believe in a super being, God, and is going to control our lives, every aspect of our lives. This is before most of the halachas weren't given. Torah wasn't given yet. Even on and after the 15th of Nisan, when the Jews were redeemed, some of the evil and impurity of Egypt remained a part of their being. Therefore, the people fled. Why do they have to run out of? Why were they fleeing? They weren't being chased by Paro. Paro says, "Leave." He wasn't chasing us. If he was ambushing us, you have to run for your lives. So why in the world do the Jews have to run for their lives? They could have just walked slowly. He was begging us to leave. Alter Rebbe asked this question in Tanya, chapter 31, and he says, we were not fleeing physically from Paro. We were fleeing from the spiritual power within us, the internal Paro. After being so many years under the Egyptian culture and authority, we had it inside of us. It was part of us, and we had to run away from that. Otherwise, it would consume us. So that's the reason for the fleeing was a spiritual fleeing, and it manifests itself in running out of Mitzrayim as well, because they were afraid to remain there, lest the waiting causes evil to surface. They knew that their spiritual lives are in danger. Thus, their departure from evil followed the pattern of iskafia, subduing, rather than being freed from the inner evil, motivated, in other words, from the inner evil. And this iskafia was motivated by Kabbalah's soul, accepting the yoke of heaven. But there's no geschmack. When you have Kabbalah's soul, there's no taste. It's tasteless. Dry acceptance of the yoke of Hashem. Yes, they want to because they know it's the right thing, but why is it the right thing? Why? What is this all for me? What does it mean for me? It doesn't talk to me, Judaism. I know it's the right thing. I know my life is in danger. We can lose but I don't know what it is. I don't feel it. I don't taste it. My spiritual taste buds don't relate to it. Wine, by contrast, has flavor and taste. It motivates a person who drinks it to sink. It doesn't only have taste. It takes your insides and you start revealing secrets. Song is only recited over wine. Song, we're talking about the song in the Beis Hamikdash, that only when they poured the wine did the Leviim sing the song. They had to wait for wine libations, the wine pouring. At the Seder, wine serves as a recollection of redemption and true freedom, the freedom of Torah, highlighting the state that the Jews ultimately matched or reached when they achieved, through their own divine service and within their own beings, redemption from the evil. In other words, by receiving the Torah, they worked on all their bad midos that they had acquired throughout the day, throughout many, many years. And during those 49 days, they were ready for the Torah to be given. Now they are the ones that generated their Yiddishkeit and generated godliness. So that's the reason why it relates to wine. So wine, therefore, has a connection to all four, to the fourth and final phrase of Geula, whereas matzah only represents three. Okay. But we still don't have a real connection. Okay, three of the four phrases are related to matzah, and the fourth one is wine. But does the number three, or the letter three, have a connection to matzah? And the answer is yes, because Gimel, which is three, Gimel, the third letter of the alphabet, also means to give. Who's the giver? Hashem. Who's the receiver? Us. Matzah is where the Gimel, the Gomel, the three, the one who is called Gimel, meaning the ultimate giver, was doing things for us. So matzah, therefore, is connected to Gimel, which is three. Daled means we, the poor ones. Are the poor remaining poor, or are the poor actually absorbing some wealth and becoming rich? Well, not with matzah. With matzah, we were still very poor people. We had in our knowledge. But the wine, which represents the fourth phrase, the phrase of Torah giving, which we worked on to be worthy of it, 49 days. So the wine is connected to Daled. Daled means now the poor man also has a contribution. It's not just the Eibush spoon feeding us, but now the poor man, the recipient, is also worthy of the Geula. So that's why the number three, connected to the letter Gimel, is connected to matzah. On this basis, it is possible to understand the difference between the required number of matzahs, 3, and the required number of cups of wine, 4. To that, the Rebbe will say actually later. Within the 4 promises of redemption, there is a difference between the first 3 and the fourth. The first 3 promises: I will bring you out from under the burdens imposed by Egypt, I will deliver you from their labor, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm, and awesome judgments are all aspects of redemption that were fulfilled immediately upon the exit from Egypt, right away. They ate the matzah right away. At that point, they didn't feel anything because they came from above. Being manifestations of God's power, we had no say in the matter. We were just pulled and schlepped out of Mitzrayim when the matzah was eaten, right as we were going out of Mitzrayim. By contrast, while Hashem is also the subject of the 4th promise, it also says, I will take you, but his I will take you is in response to our avodah. Although the 4th promise also says, I, God, will take you as a people, I'll take you to myself as a people. Nevertheless, the fulfillment of that promise was dependent on the divine service of the Jewish people. Yes, I will, but only after you do something about it. They had to be worthy of God taking them as his people. As explained previously in the most complete sense, that took place only at the giving of the Torah. For these reasons, there are 3 matzahs corresponding to the first 3 promises of redemption, because matzah emphasizes the redemption that comes from Hashem. By contrast, there are 4 cups of wine to highlight the dimension of the redemption that is brought about by the internalized within the divine service of the Jewish people. When Judaism is internalized, that's like wine. Wine is able to get into your pneumius. Therefore, the 4 cups also reflect the 4th promise of redemption. I will take you to myself as a people. For this reason, it's interesting. We find that the scriptural mitzvah of Pesach night is only eating matzah. There's no biblical commandment to drink wine. Why is that? Because going out of Mitzrayim, all you have is going out of Mitzrayim. In other words, if you're celebrating going out of Mitzrayim, then you don't have the 4th. You don't have Matan Torah yet. So the Torah doesn't mandate a 4th wine drinking. As you go out of Mitzrayim, Yetzias Mitzrayim only is 3 levels, not 4. But the rabbis came along later and initiated the idea of also celebrating on Pesach already Matan Torah. And we do that with the 4 cups of wine. Okay. Yeah, I just want to go to the next piece is connected to fathers and mothers. Why do we have 3 forefathers and 4 matriarchs, 4 Rivka, Rachel, Leah? It's not by accident. The fact that in the male era, there's 3, and far as avos, we have 3. Fathers are related to 3, and mothers related to 4. Why is that? Why do you think? Both interesting. When it comes to procreation, of producing a child, the father initiates the process. And there are 3 levels. Rebbe doesn't explain the 3 levels here so clearly, but there are 3 levels. Some say there's the zygote, the embryonic stage, and the fetal stage. This is all from the seminal drop coming from the father, or the first trimester, middle trimester, third trimester. But then the mother is the one who gives birth. She is the one that actually brings the child as an independent entity. The child is still part of his mother, the father's work. The father's seminal drop divides into 3, however you wanted to explain the 3, either zygote, embryonic stage, or fetal stage, or the 3 trimesters, 3 different stages. In halakha, there's interesting halachas about how safe it is for certain things to happen during those 3 trimesters. I don't want to get into the details now about that, but it's interesting that there are 3 stages, but it's a seminal drop that comes from the father, and then the mother is the one after 9 months bears the child, and the child is born. So we see also that the number 3 and 4 is connected to male and female, as we'll explain in the next paragraph, in the next chapter, rather, chapter 6. Yeah.
Well, I think it's just going to ask, you said 3 represents what, and 4 represents what? This paragraph.
3 represents giving,
Mhm.
and 4 represents receiving. The word dal is the name of the 4th letter of the alphabet. It means poverty. And gimel means gomel, like gemilas chesed, to bestow, to give, to share. That's the giver. So there's the giver and the receiver, the rich man and the poor man. In our sense, God is the gomel, he's the giver, and we are the recipient. Matzah represents where we couldn't taste what Hashem was giving us. He was giving, everything was coming from him. All we did was let ourselves be redeemed, but we didn't contribute anything. Barely nothing. We couldn't. We were just so submerged in Mitzrayim that we had no koyach, no spiritual energy to move. So Hashem had to do everything for us. And that's why it's connected to matzah, because matzah is tasteless. Although I actually like matzah. Matzah is tasteless. And it's made from very poor ingredients. Now, if you have matzah mixed with fruit juices, even if it's not chametz, you can't use that for the seder. It has to be just plain flour and water and nothing else. No oil, nothing, 0. Why? What does that represent? Simplicity. Simple. I'm a poor man and I have no idea about the energy that's redeeming me. All I know is that I'm being pulled and schlepped, but I don't know how and why and what's going on. No understanding about divine energy. The 4th praise, when Hashem took us as a nation, that's only because we worked on ourselves for 49 days after counting Sphira, after going out of Mitzrayim. We worked on ourselves, and then we became Hashem's nation. That's richness. That's when the poor man, meaning us, who were previously poor, have been enriched with a taste of appreciating godliness in Judaism, appreciating what it means to be the chosen people, to be the people that are going to be Hashem's nation. We had a great understanding of the value of being chosen after 49 days. So that's compared to wine. So the 4th phrase of the four phrases, the 4th phrase represents richness, wealth, meaning where the recipient now is rich. We're not just living on Hashem's kindness and goodness, but we ourselves have also worked on ourselves. And slowly but surely, we can now taste the taste of what it means to be Hashem's people.
So
That's the wine.
that now we're capable of receiving.
Right. Capable of internalizing, digesting Yiddishkeit and godliness. Just like wine, when you drink wine, it affects you internally more than anything else. It has a taste. First, it has a very good taste, if you know how to drink good wine. And it also brings your insides out. You start saying secrets that you would normally not say. Sometimes it's not good. But it has the power to bring out your pneumius. And that's exactly why wine isn't related to number 4. Because it has all the 4 phrases, not just the first 3 phrases where we were just don't know what's hitting us. But the 4th phrase, which includes our preparation for Matan Torah. how Hashem took us as a nation in response to our avodah. Okay, but then the Rebbe says that in addition to that, we could also explain the idea of father and mother here. Why we have 3 forefathers and 4 mothers. On a deeper level, the interconnection on page 96 or 94 of matzahs with the number 3 and the cups of wine with the number 4 can be explained as follows. The Hebrew letters also serve as numbers. The difference between the numbers Gimel and Dalet is reflected in our sages associated of those letters with the phrase Gimel Dalim. Gimel Dalet, Gimel meaning show or bestow kindness to Dalim. Dalim means the poor. The Gimel 3 is associated with Gimel, which means in Hebrew to give, the giver, while the Dalet, which is number 4, is associated with Dal, the poor. But the question is, why is it that giving is connected to 3? Why is giving connected to 3? So what I'm going to explain in the next few paragraphs, that in the course of giving, there are 3 stages in order for the receiver to be able to be received. A mashpia has to go through 3 stages of teaching to plug his ideas into the brain of the student. It takes, when a student understands, that's level number 4. But there are 3 different levels and phases that the teacher has to go through to make his teaching clear. And there are many ways to explain it. Rebbe explains it in one way, but there are many ways to explain this. Also, when you teach yourself, you also have to go through 3 stages. The final stages when you have it, when you already have the idea clear, you can talk about it. But before you can actually find words, there are 3 stages. There's also a scientific experiment of the 3 and 4. How many elements do we have? We have 4 elements. But in Sefer Yetzirah, which is a sefer written by Avram Avinu, authored by Avram Avinu, no one less than that, he writes, he only mentions 3. Doesn't mention earth. He mentions fire, water, and air. So Chassidus says something very interesting. The 4th one is a product of the other 3. Where do you see this? A scientific experiment. You have water. How do you boil water? You need fire. But in order for fire to exist, you need oxygen. If you cover the fire, it's going to go out. So fire needs air. And after you have the oxygen, the fire will cook the water. What will happen if you keep on cooking and cooking and cooking nonstop? And as the water is evaporating, add a little bit more water so it shouldn't evaporate. You know what's going to happen? You're going to see on the bottom of the cup, on the bottom of the pot, dust particles. Try it. It takes a while, for hours. If you keep on boiling water for hours and hours and hours, you're going to see dust particles on the bottom of the pot. And it doesn't come from the pot, it comes from the water. The Chassidus explains that you say to Ha'afah, there's earth, there's an element of earth within the water too. But to extract that, it's not easy. You got to have fire, you have to have oxygen, and you have to have a constant burning of fire. So the same thing is true, it says, in your own personal experience of a concept. There's Chachma, there's Bina, there's Das, and then there's Dibur. You have a flash of thought, that's like water, just hits you. And then you take that flash and you make it clear. But how does a flash become clear? It's so easily, it flashes like lightning, easy come, easy go. It comes quickly and then, I got it, I just lost it. How do you maintain this lightning flash of Chachma so that it can be analyzed through Bina? You need Das. What is Das? Das is like oxygen. Das is what gives you the ability to hold on to something and not lose it. It allows the power of Bina to take apart that flash, that Chachma. And as you use your Koyach HaBina of analyzing and dissecting, you know what formulates? Words. Now I have words, now I can explain. Now I have words that can contain the idea. Until I really started, until a person was able to use his Bina, he couldn't find any words. When you have that flash, you have no words. You can't explain it. Just know what something sounds right, but you don't know why. So Bina is like the fire, and it extracts the ability to put your ideas into words. The words are like the earth, because words are dead. Words are just, an olive will never change to a vase, and a vase will never become an olive. So words are like containers, like earth. Chachma, Bina, and Das correspond to water, fire, and air. Chachma is compared to water. You know why? What does water do? It draws things together. You have a flour and you put water in it. What happens? The flour becomes dough. Well, if you have dust particles and you mix it with water, it becomes mud. So water holds things together. Water also comes down. Water flows. You have water flows. Water goes downward. Fire is just the opposite of water. What does fire do? Breaks things apart, tears things apart, and fire rises upward. What's chachma? Chachma is a flash hits you from on high, and you're not hot, you're cold. What do you mean cold? You don't enjoy it. You're like in a trance. Oh, you see a beautiful painting, what happens? You're lost. You're not jumping around. By Bina, what is Bina? Bina is when you understand it. Bina is when you're able to, when your brain finally absorbed, I understand it. So there's warmth. You feel excited that I understand the concept. And that's when you start having a formulation of oisios, of letters, of words. You have many, many words that you can explain and you can teach it, and it becomes clear to you and clear to others. But to get to that, to get to the earth, you have to use your bina and dissect and dissect and dissect, and only after that, with the help of das, without das, bina won't work. The chachma is going to disappear. So to be able to hold on to that nekudas hachachma, that bina should be able to succeed in doing what it has to do, you need das, which is like the oxygen, and then suddenly you have words, which is compared to the earth, to the dust particles in the scientific experiment that's mentioned. So there's scientific experiment in Gashmias and it's also in Ruchnias. So whenever it comes to a thought process, it always starts with 3 levels. And then the 4th one is the result. So Eish, Ruach, and Mayim are the 3 givers. They feed, and the result is you have earth. It's always that way. So there are 3 in the giving side and 4th on the receiving end. We ran out of time. Okay. We'll stop here. Anyways, we weren't going to finish the speaker anyway, but I didn't even finish what I wanted to finish today, so that's unfortunately. Okay, there's one more page of the speaker where the Rebbe explains also why matzah is from the Torah and the rabbis instituted wine. Rabbis are recipients. Torah is Hashem. Hashem gives matzah laws. The rabbis, who are the recipients, the Jewish people, themselves produce the mitzvah of drinking wine. Rabbinical. So rabbinical is connected to 4. Why? Because 4 is dal. Dal means poor, the impoverished. Well, the rabbis themselves produce a Torah law. And matzah is biblical, where Hashem is the one who initiates. That's why there are matzah is min Torah and wine is min Rabbanan. Have a wonderful day. And wait.
Thank you.